But Mark, let's end the podcast taking a look at another NFC East topic. Technically, we're taking a look at the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, who will open up their season as this video comes out. It will be less than a week. This is coming out on Friday. Next Thursday, the 6th, they will open up their title defense against the hot Atlanta Falcons in the opening game of the NFL season. And we're talking Carson Wentz today because the big topic with Mr. Wentz is whether or not he's going to start week 1 for the Eagles, coming off of that knee injury that he suffered against the Rams last year. According to, I'm looking at a Bleacher Report article, according to Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Daily News, he says that Doug Peterson, is going to make a decision by Friday, however, will not make the decision public. Wentz has not been cleared for contact after tearing his ACL against the Rams last year. Nick Foles obviously led this team to the Super Bowl. That's why we're saying defending Super Bowl champions. I'm just going to ask you plain and simple. Will Carson Wentz play week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday night?
I think that he will. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I know there's a little bit of concern, but I'm not completely buying it. I think he's going to be just fine, and he'll be out there. I also think it's funny for them to just be like, yeah, well, the coach is going to make his decision but not make it public, which means one of two things. That either means that he's going to tell the team and it's going to immediately get out because that's the way it works, or if he's just going to keep it in his own head, yeah, I can make a decision what I'm going to do in the future as well if I just don't tell anybody. Nobody's going to know, so who cares? It's a little like, all right, sure, whatever. But I fully expect that Carson Wentz will be out there. I mean, the guy wants to play. He just had to sit there on the sidelines and watch his backup win a Super Bowl. He wants to be out there and play. He's not going to let something get in his way. He's going to make sure that he has his opportunity to be out there. I don't doubt that at all.
Now, for me, I'm a little bit questioning of this. If you were to ask me, will he, I'm going to say, I don't know. I honestly do not know which way Doug Peterson is going to go. I'm not as confident as you to where, yes, Carson Wentz will be out there, no problem, because there's kind of some conflicting reports and other things going on. So, like, Alshon Jeffrey, they've already said he's going to miss the first 2 games of the season. You've had Peter King yesterday went on the Dan Patrick Show. Was it yesterday? Or was this an older article that I'm looking at? Yeah, no, this was yesterday. So Peter King of NBC Sports went on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and he expressed his belief that Carson Wentz may not play until week 3 as well. And to me, part of me feels like that could be true, only because of when Carson Wentz injured his knee, because like they were talking about on Golick and Wingo this week of, you look at Deshaun Watson and Coach Bill O'Brien's like, yeah, he's going to be ready to go week 1. Yeah, but he had his injury about 2 months earlier than Carson Wentz, which many people might say, Ricky, what's that, an additional 8 weeks, whatever. Yeah, but with the knee injury, it makes sense. However, there might be people out there that's saying, Ricky, I know that Carson Wentz doesn't play for the Minnesota Vikings, but think about what Adrian Peterson did when he came back from an ACL injury. He tore that around Christmas time, came back the next year, and had arguably his best, I will say his best season as an NFL running back after tearing his ACL the year before. So for me, could he come back week 1? Yes. However, the question that I'm kind of posing in my head that I really don't have an answer to of, will the Eagles keep both him and Alshon out until week 3 But if he's ready to go, why would you do that? Why would you keep him out for the first 2 games, especially with Carson Wentz? You could beat the Atlanta Falcons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have no qualms about. Even Nick Foles can go out there and beat them without Jameis Winston. But really, it's that first game of, if Carson Wentz gives you the best chance to win and he's healthy, why not play him week 1 and win that game rather than possibly lose it with Nick Foles?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do whatever is your best chance of winning a game. You know, you can't go out there and say, well, this guy could play, but we'll go with somebody else. You're doing whatever's going to give you the best chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's, you know, Carson Wentz is technically healthy, but he's not looking great, you know, then yeah, you got to go with Nick Foles in that case. But it's a difficult situation. It really is difficult. You know, you can't go out there and just assume that because you just won a Super Bowl, you're going to go back and you're going to go kick some ass and you're going to be just as good as you were last year. It's a different season. The team, even though it has a lot of the same pieces and is essentially just kind of, I personally think, a better version of the same team from last year, It's a whole different season. You start losing games and those add up. You know, you never know what's going to make the difference. You got to do whatever is going to be the best case for your team to win the game, and they know that. They for sure know that. So if Carson Wentz isn't out there playing, then yeah, he's not healthy enough to do so. But it seems like he's going to basically just barely get in there for it. And, you know, it seems like it's kind of like going to be a last-minute call. So for everybody drafting Carson Wentz in the fantasy football leagues, they're going to be paying a lot of attention that's the Thursday night game, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be paying a lot of attention throughout work on Thursday to see if they get any updates. But yeah, it's just, part of me, I wonder if they're just trying to, you know, really make it seem, and not completely, but really milk out this injury so that way a team's got to prepare for Nick Foles and Carson Wentz when at the end they can go, yeah, Carson's ready. And they can let him go out there, play, and make a big show for his return back. But you never really know. I mean, we all thought that, not everybody, but a lot of people thought Andrew Luck was going to play last year, and he didn't play at all. So some of these injuries, you can't rush it back. You really can't, and you got to do whatever's best for the player in that case. But I do expect him to be out there. I'm going to be a little surprised if he's not.
Well, and that's why for me that first game means everything in this, because if we switched week 3 and week 1, and let's say the Eagles were playing the Colts week 1 and then the Bucs week 2 and then played the Falcons, or if let's say they were playing and Titan fans are going to hate me for saying this, but if they were playing the Titans week 1 and then the Bucs week 2, Colts, and then the Falcons, a little bit of me would say, well, it doesn't matter. Sit them out till week 3 because Nick Foles can beat the Colts, Nick Foles can beat the Titans, Nick Foles can beat the Bucs with no problem.
But you never know.
You do never know. That Colt team, too, the Colts are going to say, well, Ricky, Andrew Luck is back, and you said Andrew Luck is good for 8 automatic wins, I know. But the rest of that Colt team is, to quote their old coach, Jim Morris Sr., the rest of that team is diddly poo, along with, besides Andrew Luck, he's probably the only thing not diddly poo on that team. But I just feel like Carson Wentz should start week 1 because like you mentioned, yeah, you can get away with, let's say, we don't win that Atlanta game, but in a year where your schedule is going to be tougher, you have to play the Falcons, who could be a playoff team, like a 1 or 2 seed. The Vikings, who could be a 1 or 2 seed, and arguably they got better than last year. You play the Giants, who have gotten better. The Cowboys, the Redskins, who have gotten better. Your division got better. Let's just put it that way. Your division's going to be tough. Then you play the Rams on the road. You're playing Jacksonville on the road. You're playing the Saints on the road. Like, you've got these tough road games. Then on top of it, Houston, if Deshaun Watson is there, that could be a tough game. You've got Carolina. I'm not really high on Carolina, but that could be a tough game depending on what Cam Newton we see you have a harder schedule this year. So because of that, your point of every game matters more to where, hey, we lost week 1, we could get to the end of the year and be sitting there going, man, if this team only started Carson Wentz week 1, they could be a playoff team. Or like, man, if they only started Carson Wentz week 1, they would have been a first-round bye team and not a team that is playing in the wild card either on the road or at home. So, I mean, that's the thing I look at. Because of the schedule and how much tougher it is than last year, that's why I feel like you have to do everything in your power to get him ready for week 1. And the only reason why we have not seen him take contact yet is because how do you make sure he doesn't get injured before week 1? He doesn't get hit. That's the only reason why he hasn't been in contact yet this offseason.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know, like you were saying. I mean, it might be losing one game, and it can't specifically be this game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll have other things. Maybe it's an interception. Maybe it's, oh, you should have went for the field goal instead of going for the touchdown, whatever it could be. But anyways, you know, one game could be the thing that knocks you out of the playoffs. It could be the thing that reduces the number 1 seed to number 2 or 2 to 3. You know, you lost a bye week. One game in the NFL, because there's only 16 of them, it means a lot. It really can mean a lot. And especially if what you were saying before, if it turns one game to 2 to 3, if he doesn't come back till week 3, that's quite a bit that you can miss. You know, that's 2 different games right there. There's a big difference from being 10-6 and from being 8-8. So it could be an issue. But fortunately for the Eagles, they are such a well put together team. I mean, they won the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. Now, part of that is really that Nick Foles was just kind of playing above himself a little bit. And that team, they really embraced that underdog attitude. Also, it comes down to the fact that if there wasn't a strip sack, Tom Brady probably would have charged back and won a Super Bowl again. You know, I mean, it was not that far from going a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
But the team is built so well. They have a great defense. They have great weapons, both as running backs, wide receivers, and tight end. They've got so much to where all they really need to do with Nick Foles is kind of just don't mess it up. And this could be a great thing for the Eagles still, as they could potentially still have more audition tape for Nick Foles to where, let's say somebody gets hurt, you know, maybe it's a Jameis Winston or a Blake Bortles, you know, who knows who's going to get hurt, one of these teams that is in the running for a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Nick Foles has a good game or two. Maybe you can trade him. They should have probably traded him in the offseason already, because that was going to be a chance to actually get something out of Nick Foles instead of just letting him sit on the bench. If they have some good games and he already played those 2 games till Carson Wentz comes back, yeah, sure. Trade him then. Get something out of him. Of course, there's going to be plenty of people that are like, yeah, but he's the insurance policy, and backup quarterbacks are so worthwhile, but the odds of you winning a second Super Bowl with a backup quarterback again, if needed, incredibly unlikely. So I would stand on that of, if you get the chance, if he does well, it's a great opportunity to trade him and get something out of him.
Well, and I'll ask you this. This is kind of a little off Wentz, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Of, let's say Wentz does start week 1. We know for sure Alshon Jeffrey is not going to be playing for this Eagle team week 1 or week 2, but especially in that Falcon game, because trying not to disrespect Tampa, but I think that's an easy win for the Falcons, no matter what quarterback or roster they throw out there. Against the Falcons, even with Wentz out there, how much of a loss is Alshon Jeffrey to this team in that week 1 game?
He is a loss, but you look at his yardage, and he wasn't a 1,000-yard receiver last year.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles somehow didn't have any 1,000-yard receivers last year. If I remember right, I think Alshon was around like 800 yards which is good, but it's not what people kind of expected. The thing for the Philadelphia Eagles is that everybody was so talented that they could spread the ball around. And that kind of allows you to say, well, yeah, sure, if Alshon's gone a game or two, whatever, that's fine. We got other people we can throw the ball to. But, they do lose some weapons as well. Speaking of Alshon Jeffrey, Trey Burton being one of them going to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be interesting to see if all the receivers and running backs can be as effective as they were last year for the Eagles, because they had the flexibility of just being able to pass the ball anywhere, and it would work out. So I don't think Alshon Jeffrey is the biggest deal, although it is a deal. They can spread the ball around.
Well, I think the thing that makes it a bigger deal is they don't have, like you mentioned, they don't have Trey Burton because he's with the Bears, the Chicago Bears, but they also don't have Torrey Smith either. They traded him as well. So without Alshon there, the first 2 weeks of the year, here are probably, I'm going to say maybe the top 3 wide receivers, with arguing for who's going to be that third one. Mike Wallace will be out there, Nelson Aguilar, and then probably Marcus Wheaton will be the third one. And then all the rest of the guys that you have behind those 3. To me, though, the guy I look at is, of course, Zach Ertz is going to be the leading receiver on this team. You were right. Alshon didn't have 800. He had about 789 yards last year, and he led the team with 9 touchdowns ahead of Ertz and Aguilar, who both had 8. Ertz led the team with 824 receiving yards last year. The guy I look at to what will he be in his first NFL regular season game is Dallas Goedert, because Zach Ertz, we know how this team likes to use the tight end. Like you mentioned, Trey Burton was in that spot last year, and there's a reason why the Bears went and picked him up, because he did a damn good job in that spot for the Eagles a year ago. With Alshon not being there, he could be a guy that really needs to step up and help out this team. I know the wide receivers will as well. Mike Wallace and Nelson Aguilar will be the one, although he'll be in the slot. Mike Wallace will be on the outside, probably with Marcus Wheaton. Is that even a cause for concern? Or is it we got Aguilar, we got Ertz. I'm not really worried about Wheaton, Wallace, or Goddard. Just don't mess anything up, and we should be able to compete with the Falcons.
Yeah, I exactly think it's that. They just need players to not mess something up.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, they have good weapons. They have people who have done well in the past few years and are good enough to continue doing well enough to where they're not concerned about losing. It's going to be rough, I think, for them, especially with the bright lights of the first game of football being back, and they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and they're going to make a big deal out of things, and then they're going to, throw Nick Foles out there potentially, and Alshon Jeffrey's not going to be out there, and the team's not going to look the way people want it to look. So I think, if anything, it's potential just that the pressure gets to them in that case, because it is a lot of pressure. And last year, the whole thing was they were the underdogs. Everybody doubted them, that big chip on their shoulder. Well, you win a Super Bowl, you're not underdogs anymore.
No, the target's on your back.
Yeah, if anything, it's even worse than that, because you won with a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So we're expecting the world out of you. If anything, we should be expecting at least a 14-2 season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because look what and I know that Carson Wentz played the vast majority of the season last year, but you guys get what I'm saying. Just that the hype is insane for this team to go out there. There's people who are saying, hey, this is a team that could go 16-0. We could get our second 16-0 team. The hype is through the roof. So that pressure could be something that kind of gets to them a little bit and kind of gets that upset. I think that first week that would be quite an upset for sure. But really for me, I'm just not that concerned when it comes to the Eagles. I really do think, not 100% buying into all the hype, but I really think this is a team that was really good last year and just got better. And I don't think they're going to win 16 games. I don't really think they're going to win 14 games. But there's no reason why this team can't go out there and be a number one seed in the NFC. Number 1, number 2, number 3, right at the very top.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to even go out and say that this team, if Carson Wentz didn't get injured week 14, would have been a 14-2 team entering the playoffs, because after the injury, Nick Foles beats the Giants on the road. Carson Wentz would have been able to do the same. Beats Oakland at home. Carson Wentz would have been able to do the same. The interesting thing is that Dallas game to end the year, because that was a game where Nick Foles only threw 11 passes. From what I believe, Nick Foles went in to start, threw 11 passes. They said, screw it, we're pulling him. Can't let him get injured before the playoffs. Nate Sudfeld went out there, and it was basically Dak Prescott versus Nate Sudfeld, where, let's be honest, if Carson Wentz was there, it would have been Carson Wentz is not playing, Nick Foles is out there, and Nick Foles would have been able to beat the Cowboys, which that game was only a 6-0 game, where it was just one touchdown at the end of the game for Dak Prescott through the air that sealed the deal for the Cowboys. So if Carson Wentz is playing, Nick Foles could beat and score more than 0 points against Dallas in that game. Any final thoughts you have on the Eagles, Carson Wentz, and everything we talked about?
The only thing I have to say for it is I really hope that we don't have an Andrew Luck situation of
where he doesn't
comes
play
back week 1. It's too early. He re-hurts himself, and he's gone for a long time after that. Because injuries are serious, and you can't just rush back because you want to rush back.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give yourself enough time to heal, because those injuries will linger. They can ruin a career, to where you'll potentially never be healthy enough again. Just ask Sam Bradford how that is. He had a very promising start. The injuries caught up, and he's never had his chance since then. And there's been plenty of other quarterbacks and other positions as well that have had the exact same thing. And a lot of them, I'm sure, wish that they had taken that extra week, or maybe listened to the more conservative doctor in the room that said, maybe instead of the 4 weeks, we do 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
To anything to extend that career, especially for a guy like Carson Wentz, who looks like the future is so promising for him. He's got to do everything he can do. Your NFL career isn't that long, but it's a long career. Play the long game and make sure that you last as long as possible. Be a Tom Brady, lasting season upon season upon season. Don't go out there and, be one of these quarterbacks who's there for 3 years and just gets too hurt, and the team's got to replace him.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Also, got to throw out before the housekeeping a little bit of a special announcement. If you missed it today on the YouTube channel, you got to go check out What's Your Fantasy. We kicked it off yesterday. It'll be a weekly podcast covering fantasy football throughout the entire football season. So go check that out. It's going to be a great one with Brandon and I each and every week. And then the normal housekeeping. If you want to help support us, make sure to check out patreon.com/most valuable podcast. You can join a podcast every month. You are at the $10 tier. We got some great patrons, great guys who come on and contribute to our podcast each and every month, and we couldn't do what we do without their help each and every month. You can also support us by going and get yourself an MVP t-shirt. I wore it this week on the Primetime Podcast. If you want to go see it, you can also see it down below in the description, or at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you have Apple Podcasts, you have iTunes, make sure to give the Onside Kick a 5-star rating. Even if you're on YouTube, go over there and give us a 5-star rating, and then type in and tell us why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. I want to thank you guys for listening basically this week to the audio version, listening on YouTube, listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.